So I used reason. Didn't work at all.
No.
Because it's always said, let us sit and reason together.
Yeah.
So finally I came up with, I was swimming in the East River. There's a high wall, and I couldn't get ashore, and I was drowning. This isn't true. Masato worked on the boat, and he threw a lifesaver to me. I said, Mother, he saved my life. She said, oh my God. She said, why didn't you tell me that? I said, well, you didn't give me a chance to. Please, he said, please ask him to come over. I want to thank him and beg forgiveness. I said, I don't know if he'll come over. The reason for that is to get her to flee more. See, I looked at my mother as my baby daughter, the same with my father. They were like children, because they were brought up in the normal world. So I said to Masato on the phone, I told my mother you saved my life. She wants you over Friday for dinner, and she wants to apologize. I said, but the minute you walk in the door, she's going to hug you and kiss you and beg forgiveness. So I prepared him for it.
Mm-hmm.
So when he came in, my mother went through all those things. And she was talking to him at the dinner table, really talking to him. So I walked away and came back 20 minutes later. I waited till Masato went to the washroom. Then I said to my mother, what do you think? She says, you know, Jacque, he's just like you and I. He has wonderful parents and a brother studying medicine and a sister that's a nurse that works at the county hospital. I said, yeah, but he's an Oriental. I did that thing.
Mm-hmm.
I went like that. She said, you shouldn't do that. He saved your life. I said, yeah, but he's a member of the Yellow Race. Now she's coming back with, but he's different. He's been in this country for years. I said, but he's still a member of the Yellow Race. And she came around, she said, he's so different. I was wrong. A month later, she puts her arm around Masato and me and calls him son now, because she really got to like him. Once that was established, I said, Mom, he never saved my life. She says, you little devil, I would have never opened the door. Do you understand? Communication is any system whatsoever that produces the right behavior, but then tell them later why you did it. Do you understand what I'm getting at? Don't perpetuate that. Like if I move things, I always tell kids how I did it. Now, to take God away from the kids, I give them seeds, 10 kids, and they plant it in the ground very young, 6, 7, and 8. And I say, if you can't write, draw pictures of what's happening. And they draw the shoot coming up and all that. And they say, gee, the plant is growing. I said, now that's what you got in school. And I said, plants can't grow unless there's sunlight, moisture, water. Of itself, it can't do anything. Do you understand that? But in school, they teach you that the plant's growing. Man is connected to sunlight. If he weren't, the plants would die, then he would die. They call organic, inorganic. You have iron in you. If you took that out, you'd die. So you're connected to everything. You can't see the plug up your ass and the plug in the wall. That's why people think they're free agents. Without oxygen, you'd collapse. Without gravity, you'd fall over. So you're connected to what the trees breathe out, and you breathe out, they breathe in. So you're part of a continuum. You understand?
Do you believe your perception can open so much so that you can perceive that continuum? I had an experience with LSD once when I was a young child.
Well, that's what the electron microscope is. It's an extension of the limitations of human attributes. So when a person says to me, I have very well-educated people that come here and say, at least I'm conscious. I said, bullshit. You're only conscious of what your receptors can pick up. There are radio waves going through here.
The molecules, air molecules are in
so
certain
you can't
formations.
ever be conscious except the limitations of your receptors. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So when we build a microscope, it shows us, it extends the human perception. Then the electron microscope shows us atoms. And then by inventing instruments, our perception is extended, but we're never truly conscious. So they say, well, I don't know if you notice, a chicken hawk can see a dime from the top of the Empire State Building, man a 3-foot ball.
Right.
So do we perceive better than insects? Well, there are some plants that can sense vibrations and other plants at 2 miles away. And we call them vegetables.
Yeah.
Some plants are more sensitive than humans.
Mm-hmm.
You know the mimosa plant?
Mm-hmm.
You touch it and it moves.
Yeah.
It's 6 times as sensitive as a human being. When a wisp of a cloud passes in front of the sun, it moves. Humans are 6 times as dull.
Mm-hmm.
So the book, if you're really interested, is called Response in the Living and Non-Living. But there's many wonderful books that I've read that took me when you don't know how any of this started, but when I was 11 years old in school, I refused to pledge allegiance to the flag. And the teacher grabbed me by the ear right to the principal's office. He doesn't want to pledge allegiance to the flag. So the principal says to the teacher, "You're excused." And he put his arm around me. But he said, "Why?" I said, "Everybody pledged allegiance to the flag." I said, "Everybody once believed the earth was flat. That doesn't make it flat. What everybody believes is not what I go by." So he said, "Well, what do you think of American history?" I said, "It's BS." I said, "Bad science." So he said, "What's the matter with it?" I said, "Everybody does the right thing. Everybody says the right thing. There's no such people. In the real world, we make mistakes. We do things that are wrong. But all our congressmen always defends everything we do.
Mm-hmm.
They're not honest. Same with the presidents." So he said, "Well, what do you think of our courses in school?" I said, "They're restricted. They're not broad enough." So he says, "I'm going to have to call your mother in." So I picked up the phone call. My mother comes in an hour later crying. What did he do? The principal says he didn't do anything, but we have no place for Jacque in our school. I'm going to buy him whatever books he wants, and he can read in the back of the class because he doesn't like our stuff. But I think he's not a bad person. He just is different. So he paid out of his own pocket. He told my mother he's not going to get homework. He doesn't have to do what the other kids did. And he roped off the back of the class. Then I began to be beaten up by the normal kids because they didn't like that.
Yeah.
I wasn't bad to them. I was nice to them always. But then that went on for 1.5 years. Then he died. And they took away that privilege. And I played hooky for 6 weeks after he died. And the truant officer was sitting on my doorsteps. When I came home, I always went to school with books, but I never went to school. And he was sitting there. He said, "You haven't been to school for a month." I said, 6 weeks. That's right. So he said, "What do you do when you're not in school?" I go to the Science Museum, I go to the library, and I read what I want to read. So he said, "What do you do at home?" I said, "I have a little lab." He said, "Can I see it?" I said, "Under one condition, that you don't tell my mother who you are. Otherwise there's going to be trouble." So he said, "Okay." I showed him my lab and he came out and he said, "What you're doing is good. I can't criticize you. But you can do me a favor if you want to. Show up Monday. It'll mean that I got to you. Then you can play hooky again." Because as long as you're not hanging out in gangs,
Right.
you know, he's a nice guy, very young. And he understood that, which is very rare. So did the principal. A rather rare thing, because he could have gotten sloppy or do something else. But anyway, I never went back to school again. And I hitchhiked just during the Depression. There were people up on soapboxes in every park talking about mankind united, back to Jesus, socialism, communism, free enterprise, fascism. So I was listening to all these different people. So I stopped at all the socialists and I listened to them. Then I got to a man talking about communism. So he says, "Go away, sonny boy, this is not for you." They were all adults there. So I says, "I want to hear what you've got to say." He says, "Why?" I said, "Because I don't believe what the Democrats say about the Republicans or Republicans about Democrats and what they say about communism. I want to hear what communism is from a communist.